So, just by way of background, when I first got elected, one of the first things I went to was a demonstration right at Main and Hastings, which is sort of the epicenter of the HIV epidemic in the downtown east side. This was in 1997. And we had a demonstration and actually stopped the traffic. This was like one of the busiest intersections in the city. And there was a community march down to really the only park in the neighborhood called Oppenheimer Park, where 1,000 crosses have been set up in the park. So just visualize, we're walking down the street and there's 1,000 wooden crosses set up in the park. And those wooden crosses, each of those crosses represented a preventable needless death from drug overdoses in British Columbia over, I think it was a period of 3 years. It was the leading cause of death for men and women between 30 and 44 for several years, the leading cause of death beyond heart attacks, cancer, strokes, car accidents, whatever. And so it was a very powerful moment where the community said, in fact it was called the killing fields, and it was a very powerful moment to show that there was a crisis in this community, that people were dying. And they were dying because of drug laws, they were dying because of criminalization, they were dying because they didn't have access to housing, to health services, to basic human necessities. And so I went to Ottawa, our national capital, as a new member of parliament, with this issue, seared in my heart about, my God, what do I do? Well, the first day of parliament, I was ever so fortunate to walk down the hallway, and standing beside me was the Minister of Health. And those of you from Canada, it was Alan Rock at the time. And I thought, okay, I gotta talk to this guy, I gotta say something. So I started madly talking about, do you know what's going on in the downtown east side? Do you understand that people are dying? Do you understand that drug users are just being completely ignored? And I rattled on and rattled on. I gotta meet with you, I said. And he goes, oh yes, of course, very smooth guy. So I very politely, for the next couple of weeks, phoned his office, tried to make appointments. I thought he was busy, and I never got through. So I thought, okay, I'm an old community organizer. What would I do if I was in East Vancouver? Aha! So I walked down to his office, marched in, sat down, and said, I've tried to make appointments, I've written to you, I phoned you, you haven't replied. I'm not leaving until I get an appointment, and by the way, I have all the media outside. and this idea of, abstinence-based treatment or such high threshold things that people could never meet and almost became negatives, that we had to begin right at the street level. And so the battle, and it was a battle for Insite, began, I forget how many years ago now, maybe 10, 12 years ago, no, more than that. Yeah, 10 to 12 years ago. And Insite finally did open, and is still open. But what's interesting is that the federal government that we have now, a Conservative government, has fought this small facility every step of the way. It is now at the Supreme Court of Canada. Insite has now won, I think it's 3 major court decisions. It's now, the arguments have actually been heard at the Supreme Court of Canada because the federal government is determined to shut it down. And there's a determination that is greater, I can tell you, on the other side, to say that Insite will not be closed down and heard. I remember going to Main and Hastings in the last week of January 2010. The Olympics were coming to Vancouver, the Winter Olympics. There was a lot of concern about what would happen to people on the street. And there was a fast to end homelessness that I participated in, where people would do it a week at a time. And I decided to spend my fast sitting outside every day at Main and Hastings with a flip chart. And I thought, okay, I don't know what will really happen, I'm just going to sit there. People know me, they'll come up and talk to me. Well, by the time I'd finished my week, I had 3 of those big things of flip charts all filled up with people's comments about what their experience was with homelessness, with drug use, with lack of housing, with lack of rights, and how they felt about what was going on around them. And I took all of that back to Ottawa and read it into the record in our parliament, and for me it was a very powerful expression of people speaking out about their own experience and needing to be heard by people who make decisions. Second lesson I would say is to